Welcome to another episode of the Alphawaves podcast, the place for health, wellness, openness, and culture.
And culture, yeah. All of the above. And more.
And more. In the building, I am your host, Darren, and we also have your co-host,
Kam.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Good.
I love that we're matching today.
Yeah. I had to look to see what was matching for a second, but yeah. I'm not going to downplay that one. Mm-hmm. It's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
Same wavelength.
Frequency. Wave. Alpha wave.
Exactly that. But you're good, yeah?
Yeah, I'm good. I actually have a well-being tip for today.
I was going to ask you if you had one this week.
I have one.
Go ahead.
So I thought of it today, actually. I was cleaning my fridge out. Cleaning your fridge is such an underrated task, honestly. And reorganizing it. Just like taking everything out, cleaning everything, throwing away. Like, you know when you have like the odd package with one thing in there and stuff like that?
How much stuff do you have in your fridge?
Not that much stuff.
Okay.
But, you know, it's a healthy fridge.
I hear you.
And you know when you have like one onion left in one bag and then one tomato in the whatever, because I keep them in the packages. So it was just really satisfying to clean it. And it got me thinking, when you're in a weird space, or even if you're not, cleaning is just the antidote.
It is.
It really, really is. Like giving yourself something to do, it just lets your mind wander to solutions and conclusive thought. So yeah, that's my well-being tip.
To clean.
I
hear you.
It's underrated, underestimated.
Let's be more specific. Clean something in your house, yeah?
Anything, your car, your house.
Okay. Just cleansing and tidying.
Yeah, exactly. Tidying, reorganizing, wiping away the old energy, bringing in some new energy. It just feels good. I went crazy. I cleaned the fridge. I started hoovering the stairs. I deep cleaned my room. I'm really tired, actually.
a good day of housework.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Don't you remember being younger and like Saturday? I don't know if it was like this for you. Saturday.
Cleaning day. Yeah.
You would just hear your mum turn on the Hoover and you'd be like, "Oh, it's that day already."
I would be joining in, just loud music.
No, I loved it because the music, everything. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoy hoovering. I loved it. And ironing.
Ironing is really fun. Really satisfying, seeing all the crinkles disappear.
But I'm a person that I don't like when you ask me to do it.
Yeah, same.
But I like to do it.
I got to choose when I want to do it. Yeah. Otherwise, it won't be done correctly.
100%. So yeah, no, I agree. That's a good well-being tip for the week.
Exactly. If your mind's a mess, just clean up your house.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I got something on the back of that.
Okay.
So I got a message this week.
Yeah. Thank you to whoever sent the message.
Yeah, thank you. So it's somebody that I know and they're going through a little situation at the minute. Okay. Where I can't call them friends. They're acquaintance with someone.
Okay, so that person's acquaintance.
Yeah. With somebody else. But this person, every time like they've interacted or met in real life, everything's been cool. But as of late, the person that messaged me has noticed this other person has been going on a spiral online. Like
spiral?
Commenting on people's posts negatively.
What?
Arguing with people online.
Unprovoked?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Like they had like a public spat with one person, and then since then they've just been taking out a lot of anger on different people. Like anybody that had a comment on that situation, they've been firing anything at them plus more. Like since then they've just been on a tirade of just abuse basically.
No one's safe, everyone's getting it.
Pretty much. Like they're exposing old conversations with people.
Oh wow.
Like to that extent where it's quite
full on meltdown.
Yeah, but it's also
just volatile.
This like, so what they've said to me is that number one, their trust in this person has completely diminished because from the moment they start to see them exposing conversations and all of this, like the trust element's gone. Like even for to put in context, this is someone that they worked with on certain projects. So this person provided a service, and they would hire that person to help out on these projects, right?
Right.
So now they're like, the business relationship, I don't think I can continue that.
And the acquaintance who's exposing everything, are they exposing like business things or personal personal relations? Oh.
So like, say like there's some people that's now had a comment about this public spat that I mentioned. That person is now going back to whoever's made a comment. But this was you in my DMs saying a couple years ago. Like, do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Years ago.
Yeah, bringing up.
On top of that, that's expired.
So basically saying you was cool with me then. Look how you was on my side and trying to get with me then, and then now because something bad's happened in the public, you turned your back. Yeah, kind
Instead of being accountable, that you're being crazy.
But they're like
in public.
They're doing a lot. So this person's asked me, in a situation like this, even though this person's not done anything directly to them, how do they deal with it? Because it could potentially affect their own business if people see them aligned with this person, if this person's blacklisting themselves from the...
Well, does your friend and this person that they know, do they interact? Like, do they comment on their things and stuff like that?
To my knowledge, I think they said, there's been a few comments, but those comments have just been like normal. And it's with everybody else that the person's just going off on one.
All right, so at least your friend is safe for now.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
But that's the
unless
conflict.
they give their real opinion and suddenly...
So when you're dealing with someone like that, and what they're saying is that this person's not enough of a friend for them to step in and have a word with them, like to see like...
It sounds like that acquaintance doesn't want to hear any words unless it's on your side.
Maybe there's nobody that's checking them, but my friend's saying that they don't feel like they're the person to do that because their relationship or friendship isn't strong enough.
But it sounds like people are checking them, and then that acquaintance is just exposing them.
Yeah. So in that situation, she's like, do I cut? Basically.
I need to absorb the situation. That's so, for one, I just find it so shocking in this day and age of the internet to even be moving like that. I feel like that's such a 8 years ago thing to do, to be having meltdowns online. I think so.
I tweeted. I put out a post a couple months ago before this even happened, I believe, and I said it like, it really does, and I stand by it. It really does burn me when I see people having meltdowns online, yeah, because I'm like, where's your friends? Like, where's someone to pull you in and be like, what's going on? Like, I don't think you should be doing that. What's happening? Speak to me, kind of thing. So it always burns me because I'm like, is this person lonely? Like, they don't have nobody that can speak to them. But then
how do you know? Because when someone's in that zone where it is full on, not even self-sabotage, just sabotage, you don't know how many people might have said something behind the scenes.
Possibly.
And now they're on their stories being exposed. Do you know what I mean?
I just can't imagine having someone in my life going through something publicly online and me not being able to reach out to them and say, yo, everything good? Like, are you sure you want to be posting that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, so this person's asking me, what in this situation, do they just cut all ties even though the person's not done anything directly to them? Or so how do they handle this situation? How do you deal with someone that you possibly could be having, I don't want to call it a breakdown, because it might not be a breakdown, it might just be, but you know, someone that's in a bad moment.
I really am loving your compassion right now, because it's so easy to, because this is initially what I was going to be like, to just be like, what the hell are they doing? And want to completely step away. So I think it's good to have that insight to just not take things personally.
But sometimes what you say could be so egregious that it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Because I also just believe in like, you can't shame people for their mistakes and what they're doing, but at the same time, they are doing what they're doing. Words are out, you know, they have an impact.
I always had this thing when I was in...
There's other ways to have a breakdown.
Literally. And there's certain things that, like I've always said, there's certain things you can't walk back, right? I remember being, I'm going to say college. Anyway, there was a guy and he had all of these bad words to speak about immigrants, in his words, yeah? I can't remember which culture it was, but it was a time when there was an influx of people coming into the UK, right? And he said all of these bad words about them. And then me and a couple of friends had to check him on it. And then he was like, oh, but they're not black, so like, why are you taking offense to it? And our thing was, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're being racist or prejudiced to another culture, even if I'm not of that culture, you're still being racist and prejudiced.
Right is right and wrong is wrong.
I can't just overlook that, and you can't walk that back. And it's something similar in this situation. She has been quite I said the word completely wrong.
It's all right. It's a safe space. Go on.
She's been very like, I'm not even going to attempt to say the word again because my head's gone right now.
Derogatory.
Yes. Towards certain people, yeah? And certain, to certain cultures, certain people. And it's like, I can't overlook that, even if I'm not of that culture. And even if it wasn't directly towards me, I would be a fool to now just be online acting as like everything's cool. Normal.
Yeah.
So they're in this a bit of a pickle.
Well, you know what? Kind of like to respond to the first thing you said about someone having like a public breakdown, you know? One, there's breakdowns where it's like you can reach someone, you know, like if someone's having I am breaking down, I don't know what to do in my life, or you can see that they're just going out and doing crazy things. That's someone that you can throw a lifeline to. Someone who's behaving like this, it's kind of like if they're just on a path of fire, you will get burnt. That seems to have happened to other people. And one thing I've learned is you just can't be everyone's hero.
100%.
You can't. I had a friend who was just going down a mad path. And I tried so hard to reach them, you know, and it just literally drained my energy and dragged me down and was also thrown back at my face. Like if someone's just not in the place to listen or learn, there's nothing you can really do about that.
Yeah.
So with your friend's situation, especially if it's not just like, it's one thing, like for me, for example, just a friend thing. That's bad enough on its own, you know, and you're not abandoning anyone by just giving someone room to make a mess and leaving them to it, because that is what it is. But when this is like an industry thing on top of that, that's just so different. Like these are lasting reputations, they're not personal. So you have to really, and it sounds like they're just moving way too mad.
Yeah.
Like way. So I would say wisdom is best in these moments. You don't need to be, like I said, the hero of everything and check everyone. Sometimes you can just see what's going on and mind your business and use wisdom.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do anything major, like speaking out so far against them to show that you're against them, or blocking them, for instance, or doing anything drastic, because it just sounds like things are really heated right now and they're looking for things. But especially if they're commenting normally on your friend's stuff and then you click on their page and it's all this madness, I would mute them so that they can't see your friend's posts and stuff.
Right.
Just so it's subtle, just gently get yourself out of the line of fire. That's what I would do.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Because what can you do realistically if they're like exposing things? Your friend might not even remember messages that they may have had with that person, and they could screenshot anything to make anything look a certain way.
A certain way, of course.
They seem like they are hell bent on dragging people down with them, and they're in a realm of misery, and misery loves company.
That was my thing. My thing was like, if this person is not close enough to you where you feel
Yeah.
the need or the comfort in having that real conversation with them, sometimes you just gotta let people crash and burn. As harsh as it sounds,
It's
as
not even harsh.
as it sounds.
It's not harsh, because my view is, and this comes from a perspective of watching other people crash and burn, and also not quite like that, but crashing and burning myself. People need those experiences. I think I've said it here before. Like, you gotta let people have their lessons, because they need that for their own growth and their own evolution, and you're robbing them from finding gems at rock bottom.
It's a learning experience.
I hope they learn.
That recovery, either they're going to recover or they're not.
They need to find a new industry. That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. And also, when someone has that much of a thick wall around them, it's hard to get through. Like, they're not in, if they've got that shell around them that is so damaging, they're not even accessing a vulnerable part to break down in a healthier way and say, yeah, this is what's really going on. They're probably going to say something like, oh, so you're not on my side, huh? Blah, blah, blah. That's too much for an acquaintance on top of that. That's way too much. For just someone they know, that's
what I was saying.
Yeah.
I literally said, if you didn't speak to this person again a day in your life, how would that affect your life?
It won't.
They said it wouldn't even be a void.
But if you do, it would affect you more. Also, I heard something today, and it was on a podcast, and there was just one line that really stood out. Well, the whole thing was good, but one line I'm going to mention today is they said, which decision are you going to regret more?
Yeah. Shout out. Yeah. I can't even say anything more than that. I think that sums it up.
Yeah, that sums it up. So hopefully that helps your friend.
Yeah.
We can all pray for their acquaintance.
Of course.
God just needs to reach them now, because that sounds... I'm not laughing at anyone.
Nah.
I can't say we've all been there, but we've all been in a moment.
We've all been in a bad spot.
But
in my bad spots, I've never once reached for my phone and done something crazy like that.
Not like that.
Nah.
Not publicly, maybe privately. Sent someone some crazy messages. But, you know.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Really do. And that was a great question.
Keep your questions coming in.
Yeah.
Part of the Alphawaves community. We open our doors to any messages, any questions you got for us, week in, week out, and we will do our best to answer those.
And our humble opinions.
Yes. So, outside of that, one of the topics that I wanted to touch on this week,
I feel like I need recovery time.
One of the topics I wanted to touch on this week was something that you mentioned in our last episode briefly, which was attachment styles and the attachment theories.
Yeah.
It caught my ears, but at the time it was a passing comment, because I just always knew that I kind of wanted to deep dive on it a bit more. So come? I don't know, because it's just interesting, because, you know, like every so often you hear these new terms, whether it's your love language or
what is your love language?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
All of this kind
Keep
of stuff.
Your secrets,
So attachment styles was an interesting one, because I know it's something that will affect people.
It does.
Affects pretty much everyone, right?
Yeah. Well, everyone has. So I'm so glad that you brought this up, because it's actually something I've been diving into quite deeply recently. And that's why I brought it up in passing the last time we spoke, because it's just been fresh on my mind. But everyone has an attachment style, and it comes from your childhood, the way that you were raised, different things that you needed. Yeah, your caregivers, your earlier experiences, and then all the experiences that followed. So it's super, super interesting. And just to go, not really off topic, but it kind of relates, is that when you're a child, you have a young child, you have two core needs, and that's the need to attach and the need to be authentic. And often, well, in every scenario, if you have, you know, caregivers who, depending on how they are, you have to kind of sacrifice either your attachment or your authenticity. You're always going to sacrifice your authenticity in order to attach for survival. every time.
Oh, for survival. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
for survival. As a small child, you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
attach
yeah,
to your parents. So if, for instance, small example, you're a kid who plays with Barbies and your parent doesn't like it, you're going to not do that in order to attach or pretend to be whatever, you know.
So interesting, because you would
Yeah.
think a lot of kids, from my experience anyway, are like not rebellious, but I call it square testing. Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
Like testing how many squares they can step in before you tell them to come back. Like, that's enough. Do you get what I mean?
I
Like,
do know what you mean. That's different though to me, because that's more like naughtiness, you know, and curiosity and stuff like that. But if there's that's not going to threaten your attachment. But if there's something that makes you feel I'm not going to be loved by my parent if I continue doing this, then that's a bit different.
that's an interesting theory though, still,
Yeah.
because with naughty children, or if you want to call it naughtiness, I just find it like they're testing your boundaries to see
What they can get away
what
with.
they can get away with. And then when they see that there's something that you don't appreciate, they resort, from my experience, to just crying. Like they don't change their ways.
Yeah.
They still do it. But then maybe, like you're saying, yeah, it's interesting. It's actually interesting, because then again, maybe some kids will have an affiliation to something because their parent has an affiliation to that, or their parent tries to push it. So I can see how both sides work.
Yeah.
And I can probably see why you're not saying that you're incorrect anyway, but I can probably see why this theory is correct in terms of if they're going to drop one of the two, it would be the latter.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Pretty much every time, you know, if you don't feel secure, then you're going to want to do things to attach. And depending on how, you know, those experiences were, you can either have an anxious attachment style, which is where you have this huge need for closeness. And I'm speaking more like with dating now. You have this huge need with closeness and intimacy from your partner, but juxtaposing that, you have this huge fear of abandonment, that your partner is going to leave and they don't want closeness.
Do you think you can have that type of, what's that attachment style called?
Anxious
attachment style if you didn't have that in your childhood? You think you can develop new attachment styles, is what I'm basically asking.
No, not really. So there's four. There's an anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style, a secure attachment style for those lucky people. No, I'm joking. And then the last one is kind of like fearful or disorganized, and it's a mixture of both anxious and avoidant.
Do you know enough about each to give a brief summary on
I do, but only in terms of, so I haven't looked into what childhood experiences, or deeply looked into what childhood experiences lead to each.
But you could tell me what each.
Yeah. So
and this is, sorry to cut again, this is in relation to love or dating.
Yeah,
Okay,
dating
cool,
and love,
cool.
you know, whatever.
Hit me, let's go.
Okay, so number one, no, I'm joking. So you have, you know what, I threw myself off. I
don't know why you did that.
I don't know. I just felt all the momentum, and I wanted
felt like
to.
a deflection. If you don't know, it's okay.
I do know.
I'm joking.
Okay, I've been reading this book, and I have my notes if I need them. But you have, like I said, an anxious attachment style, and that's everything that I said. Then you have the avoidant attachment style. What's so interesting is that the underlying fears are the same. You know, avoidants also have this fear of abandonment and stuff like that, but they deal with it in a different way. So, say for instance, you may have had like an unreliable parent. It wasn't great for your survival to completely attach to just one person. So, for example, that the way that would correlate is that avoidant attachment style would speak to many people or have like a strong compulsion to not attach to just one person for fear that they will leave. They have a fear of closeness in a sense, or of too much closeness. They might feel like too much closeness can result in them being controlled, or, you know, they're having to sacrifice their independence and stuff like that. Then you have a secure attachment, which is, you know, you are secure in relationships. You're able to relay what your own needs are. You're able to understand another person's needs. You don't take what's going on so personally. And then you have obviously the fourth one, which is a mixture of anxious and avoidant. What's so interesting from what I've been reading is anxious attachers, and also just as a side note, your attachment style is like a system. You know, it's almost involuntary. It's a subconscious system. So if you are an anxious attached person with an avoidant attached person, all your questions will be like, do they like me? You know, why are they pulling away? What's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. And the goal is to move from that into, it's not about me, it's about them, you know? So it's not like, do they like me? It's, is this person okay with intimacy? Are they able to meet my needs? You know, kind of moving into that sphere. So going back around again, anxious attached people, they have activating strategies, you know, which kind of like propels that need for closeness and puts them in that anxious state. So one, they'll think about relationships very, very, very often. They'll put that person on a pedestal. They'll think things to themselves like, you know, I'll never find someone like this again, or it's rare for me to connect with someone like this, or, oh, that's the only good guy I've ever met, like I'm not going to find someone like that. All these activating strategies activate something in them that makes them have more of a need for closeness. So then they engage in behaviors that correspond to that. Behaviors like wanting to make the person jealous, or calling endlessly and texting endlessly. And
can that tie into like trust issues? Yeah.
I mean, with both, there's trust issues, you know, because they weren't able to trust the reliability and stability of their caregivers. Then the avoidant attacher has deactivating strategies. So for instance, they might look for perfection in a partner, or they might idealize the one in the future and think, oh, this person isn't checking all of the boxes. Or they might do things like in their head overly nitpicking and critiquing someone to create more space between them and the person.
This is the avoidant one.
Yeah. Or they might like I said, idealize a previous partner and think, oh, you know, blah, 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 it was so good. And what's so crazy is in that relationship, they might be saying all of these things, break it off, create all that space and distance, but then months later feel all the, you know, loss and the truth of what they were feeling, and then start idolizing that previous
person. Okay, yeah.
It's a cycle. So we're
you never really appreciate what they have while they have
at
it
the time. Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very, very interesting.
Is there any two attachment styles which mesh like well, that are meant to mesh well, would you say? Other than obviously both being the same.
So avoidance and avoidance don't tend to go together. And it's so interesting, that phrasing, because the anxious attached person and the avoidant attached person go so well in terms of just
on
activating paper. No, not at all. But often that's the kind of dynamic that ends up happening. You know, if you're very activated within your anxious attachment, you end up being with an avoidant person and you just trigger each other and you don't go well together. But the key point to make is the majority of people in the world are securely attached people.
Really?
Yeah. And
that's
I was so
surprising.
shocked. Very surprising, because you just keep running into or attracting or kind of staying in that, you know, up and down adrenaline dynamic. You keep drawing yourself to avoidant partners, and maybe the stability of a secure one makes you can seem boring at first or uneventful, or like there's no spark. That spark is just your blood pressure.
That's what I was going to ask. So I know somebody, and she was saying that her previous relationships have all had some sort of vibrancy to it that's always drawn her back, whereas now she's in with somebody that I guess ties into the secure, and where there's no issues, no drama, she feels like, well, she felt, she's overcome it, she felt that she wasn't sure about it because there just wasn't that level of spark, as you say.
Yeah.
But realistically, all it was the lack of drama, the lack of
activation of the attachment system.
Yeah. Do you think because most people don't know about attachment styles and whatever else?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, so for me, my attachment style, surprise, surprise, is disorganized. It's both anxious and avoidant, but more on the anxious side. So for me, I would do all those activating strategies. And in my head, when I've kind of broken away from someone, you're left wondering two things. You're like, oh my God, I was so in love with that person, along with the other activating strategies. And two, you're just looking at yourself like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why was I behaving the way I was behaving?
Yeah.
Learning about all of this helped me understand that there's actually nothing wrong with me. Like, you can leave something and just scrutinize all your behavior and think you have so many more issues than you actually have, where the truest fact is your attachment style was activated, you know. And it takes time, and I have some dating tips for both anxious and avoidant attachment styles, but you have to learn about these things to make an active effort to move forward. And it is really, really hard. I find myself doing it now. Like, you're just like the same thoughts that I mentioned, like, am I ever gonna meet someone like that again? Or what if they find someone else and they're the perfect partner to them? And then it comes back to like, what's wrong with me?
Before you get onto your tips,
my coaching,
2 questions. Your attachment style, can you see where it might have stemmed from?
Yeah, once you start looking at it, you can trace it back, you know, to what created that attachment style. And that's why the most important thing to remember is you can change your attachment style. Okay. It just takes time. Everyone can become more secure. You just need to look for the right things, not repeat the same cycles. And also remember, especially for anxiously attached people, because like I said, that's where my thing is a bit more. You have to remember that there really are plenty more fish in the sea, and the majority of people, because you can keep thinking, oh my God, everyone I meet is just like this, blah, blah, blah. There must be something wrong with me, or this is all that's going to happen. It's just not true. There is a tiny percentage of people, I don't know the exact figures right now, but a tiny percent of people who are avoidantly attached, and just slightly more who are anxiously attached, but the majority of people are securely attached.
So it sounds, from the sounds of it, it's like it's very important to know your attachment style. Yeah. What tips would you give to anybody that wants to embark on this journey of finding their attachment style? Like, where would they go? What should they look at? Would you recommend?
So you can go to your good friend Google, as anyone would do, and just Google attachment styles. You can go on YouTube. What I would 100% recommend is this book called Attached by
It's okay. They're not paying us for the plug anyway.
True.
No.
But someone called, I think, Rachel something.
Reach out to us and we can give you the actual title.
Yeah, we'll put it in the caption when we post our videos. But because that's an incredible book. It goes into so much detail with everything. And you know, just look at yourself. Like, when you're reading it, when you're looking back on your memories.
What kind of work do you need to do within yourself when you're...
You have to have so much compassion. You have to remember that it is just not your fault that you have this attachment style. And that by learning about it is just step one. You don't have to do anything about it right now. You just have to know what's going on in your activated system. Do
you have to take away the emotion of, like, even blaming, if it does trace back to your childhood or whatever, do you have to take away that emotion of blaming your caregivers.
You can't take that away.
No,
it's really hard, because how can you not, you know?
I get it, but
And
if
it's
they
part
didn't
of the
know any better,
process. But that's part of the process. Like, you can't just get from...
is it worth having a conversation with them? Do you think that helps, or you don't think it's necessary?
If you stay within yourself and just keep it within you, and I don't mean like hold it all in, I mean express it, you know, within yourself, you might find that you don't need
to.
Yeah, because sometimes you can think to yourself like, I just need them to understand, or I need that apology, and that's still your activated attachment system looking for that need to be met, and you are robbing yourself of meeting that need yourself. You know, like when all these attachment systems are created, and along with that your subconscious beliefs and stuff like that, that's come from the 6, 7, 8-year-old version of you. You know, these concrete beliefs driving you forward were created in a very unsophisticated mind. So the only advice I'd give on this process, because it is just unique to everyone, is know that you are the adult to take care of you now.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
My second question, before you get onto your tips and coaching, is which in your dating life,
oh great, go on.
Which of these attachment styles do you think you've come across the most?
Avoidant.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe anxious. And that's when my avoidance kicks in.
But was you okay? Yeah.
But definitely avoidant. Definitely. And I've wasted so much time wondering what inner work needs to be done, or blah blah blah, or this is this. Now it's just like, or trying to like, see, the trap with that is you dedicate so much time to like thinking about, how do I fix this? How do I make it work? Like blah, 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 blah. Or will things change later down the line? Or maybe I should just hold out and suddenly they'll change. They're not going to change unless they make the change, because they have an avoidant attachment style. So, and that can be changed, you know, it might take therapy. It's going to take real, you know, I know someone who I recommended the book to, and they have more of an avoidant style, and they're so amazing because they're just recognizing that within themselves and recognizing where they do it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the work is just shining a light on something, you know, and then slowly, moment by moment, doing things differently to whatever capacity you can in that moment.
Do you think that now that you've geared yourself with that knowledge, it will help you in your current or future relations?
Yes. It's pretty hard though, I'm not gonna lie. Like even after reading all of that, it's hard to remember everything
in the moment.
Yeah, so it's good to have like little notes of, and it's just like any kind of thought work, you have to stop the thought, recognize it, name it, and try and do some opposition thinking, you know, because two opposing thoughts can't live in your head at the same time.
Yeah, of course.
So you can't think, I'm never going to find someone like this, but then also think, this is just a moment and it will pass and there's a new opportunity for me. You have to choose which thought path you're going to go down. It takes practice.
I believe you. Everything does though.
Everything does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of practice, what are these tips that
okay,
you got to put
so
for people to put into practice?
let me find it. Bear with.
No problem.
If you want to entertain.
It's so interesting though, to be honest. Like, just the whole theory behind it is just so interesting.
It's fascinating.
I think I was listening to someone and she said that we can touch on it a bit afterwards, but she's saying like the studies of it date back to like 1970, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
that's where all these studies were, and they did so many different studies to show how, for instance, having a sense of dependency in your relationships isn't a bad thing. Like we need to depend on each other and it can be healthy. So let me have a look. All right, so keep bearing with. This is a great tip for anxiously avoidant people as well. Sorry, anxiously attached people too, because you do have a sixth sense. You pick up on really subtle cues and mood changes and stuff like that. And they are accurate in detecting subtle changes. But you can just jump to conclusions and assume that they're upset at you or something's going on. But for anxiously attached people, that is genuinely a superpower. And the gap that needs to be bridged is if you just wait even 10 minutes and don't jump to a conclusion, you can really use that, you know, to help. You'll have an uncanny ability to decipher the world around you and use it to your advantage. So again, activating strategies are thoughts or feelings that compel you to get close to your partner. Things like remembering their good qualities only, putting them on a pedestal, believing this is your only chance at love. Despite being unhappy, you don't want to let it go. You know, maybe he can change. Maybe she just needs to trust me more, blah, blah, blah. So the dating advice, firstly, may be controversial, whatever. Don't follow typical online dating advice. Wait for it. Follow my online. No, honestly, like all this advice online that tells you how to be more mysterious and hold your cards close to your chest and be less vulnerable and this, that, and the other. Those tips are amazing for catching an avoidant partner. You don't want that. You just don't. You know, if you want a secure relationship and you really do, you want to be with someone who's able to handle closeness, then you have to be okay with being vulnerable and knowing how to express your needs, knowing what your needs are, so then you can assess if someone can meet them. If you carry on being this mysterious, alluring person, you can still be mysterious, but if you keep behaving in that way, you're doing everything an avoidant partner wants, and you will soon be breadcrumbed yet again. So, not to be harsh, but it's just, you know, if you know, you know. And I know. So, date coaching. 1, acknowledge your true relationship needs. So don't do all the pursuing or calling your partner endlessly or expecting them to fulfill every need, but understand your own specific needs. You know, so for example, if you know that you can overthink, you might need someone more reassuring or consistent or reliable. Also, accept the fact that you do need intimacy, availability, and security. Don't feel lame about it or like you're asking for too much or this, that, and the other. Of course you want those things. They're normal. Like, who doesn't want that in a relationship? So if you're around someone who makes you feel like wanting quality time or these types of things is a stretch, then ding, 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 you're with an avoidant and you got to get out of there. So that's the second thing. No, that was the first thing. Acknowledge your true relationship needs. And when you recognize your needs and you don't let people make you feel sensitive or needy or dependent or feeling ashamed of wanting to be close to someone, knowing that these are your needs, you can use that knowledge to assess people based on their ability to meet your needs. So it moves from, like I said earlier, how can I change myself to please my partner, to can this person provide what I need to be happy? And that is a hard shift. It is. And just as a side note, for me, recognizing that in myself, like initially I felt a lot of shame that I'm not that person who is like, what do I need and how can I make someone else feel happy? Like, you almost lose respect for yourself.
Why though?
Because you're just like, why am I like that? That's so lame to be that way. Like, when you truly recognize that that's what you're doing, like you're constantly just trying to appease someone else or change yourself to do that, you feel this sense of embarrassment at yourself that you've been that way. Especially if, like for me, I also know I'm an independent and strong person. So recognizing that I also have these qualities just did something to me that was very uncomfortable.
Is that in hindsight though, because it didn't work the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, but also
in the moment you don't feel that though.
in the moment, you're not aware of it. You're just doing it. And then you look at back at yourself and you're like, that's so pathetic.
Do you think if you recognized it in the moment, not actually in that moment, but during the time frame, that you would either try and change it or you would just leave?
Oh, that's a good question. It's hard to change it in the moment because it's so activated, especially when you're with an avoidant partner, because in your head, you know, or you feel that you know that if you don't change yourself, they're going to leave. And that's like the ultimate nightmare. And it has nothing to do with you, but then all that stuff that makes you think it's your fault and blah, 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 and you weren't good enough just gets activated again. Yeah. So it is really hard. But the goal is to leave, which brings me on to my next point.
Go ahead.
So the second rule is to recognize and rule out avoidant prospects early on. So look for mixed signals about feelings and commitment. Look for someone who seems to want an ideal relationship, but then hints that it won't really be with you. You know, look out for someone who disregards emotional well-being and when confronted continues to disregard it, you know, and that can look like, thank you for sharing, I appreciate what you've said, and then no changed behavior.
That is so interesting. Sorry to pause you. The first point that you made, could you read that again?
Yeah. Mixed signals about feelings and commitment towards you. Wants an ideal relationship. So they might talk about all the things that they want in a relationship or all the ways that they've been a good partner or their exes and stuff, you know, proving that they've been in a relationship, but then hints that it won't be with you. The hint being things like, oh, but I'm not ready right now, or I'm not looking for commitment right now, or, you know, we'll see how it goes, all that kind of stuff.
So common, I believe.
It's so common.
Like I've seen it.
Yeah. And you don't even know that that's what's happening. That's why it's so good to know what an avoidant attachment style is like, so you can look out for these smoking guns.
But even though I've seen it, I've still seen the woman stay.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Continue. Because like you don't know. You're taking them for what they're saying for face value. You're just in this continual cycle and not aware of it. That's what that is. So, yeah, another thing is suggesting that you're too needy or sensitive or overreacting and invalidating your feelings, making you second guess yourself, you know, like when you're in that place of, oh, am I being too picky, or am I doing this, or blah, blah, blah. Like when you're in a loop in your head and you don't feel like you can talk to that person about it, or when you do talk to that person, they're just quite dismissive or throw things back at you, or remind you that they're just really, really, really busy. Those are all red flags. So someone who ignores anything that inconveniences them. So either they don't respond or they change the topic. And this was such an interesting one. So they address concerns as in a court of law. So responding to the facts instead of taking your feelings into account. This shocked me because that was so accurate.
Sometimes you have to, though.
But it's a bit different, like when you're pointing out the facts, but then you're also saying, I can see why what I did made you feel that way.
But what if they can't? Like, I can't see it, but I know the facts of the situation. Like, I can't see why you would think that. Like imagine if like you're being accused of something and you can give somebody the facts of the situation, but I can't even see why you would accuse me of that anyway.
True, but in that conversation, are you asking them that question and like seeking to understand?
Why do I need to seek to understand why you're crazy enough to accuse me of something that it just doesn't make sense to me?
You might be avoiding.
No, I'm just asking the question. I'm playing advocate here. I'm just playing an advocate.
Interesting side you've chosen.
So all the other times I've chimed in doesn't count. It's only this one.
That's anxious attachment. I'm like, oh, first red flag. But I don't know. There's a way to do it. So for instance, there was someone I was dating who like, you know, and I was being anxious and kind of like being in the wrong a little bit with my overthinking. And in those conversations, he was really good at, how do I phrase this? He was really good at listening to my point of view to understand where I was coming from.
Okay.
And in those conversations, he wouldn't just shut it down and be like, yeah, but I wasn't doing this and this was the fact and blah, blah, blah. He would say, oh, I can see why if I've done this and you're thinking that it's going to seem that way, but this is what the fact was. So at the end of the conversation, I felt very emotionally content. Like I was like, okay, they understand where I'm coming from. I realized now I was being a bit silly and it's just good. And that really works for an anxious attachment style because it really eases your anxiety in a more permanent way because it builds trust and it makes you feel safe and seen, which is not how you feel with an anxious, an avoidant partner. With them, it will be like, oh, but you did this too. Or, you know, instead of, oh, I can see why you feel that way now and blah, 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 and what I'm doing is affecting your well-being and that way. Those won't be the exact words, but, you know, things along those lines. It's like, well, I told you from the start I wasn't looking for it. Like, it's that. It's just kind of shutting things down, hard facts rather than, and listing things rather than, you know, it's like trying to be right and trying to clear your name as in a court of law rather than really trying to understand and connect.
I get that.
Yeah. Yeah, so blah, 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 court of law. Despite your best efforts to communicate your needs, they don't understand or they ignore it, you know? So nothing really changes. So overall, it's ambiguity about the relationship with a strong message that your emotional needs are not important to them. So often you might feel like, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm going to bother them and this, that, and the other. Like their needs just supersede your own. They may say something comforting here and there, but their actions tell a different story. So yeah, when you're dating, recognize those signs and rule them out. If you see that, you're a bit avoidant. And that's just not going to work here because you're going to drive me crazy.
Is there more?
Yes.
Okay.
So number 3, date differently. Be your authentic self and use effective communication. So express your needs. Don't feel demanding and want to accommodate people, but and try to think that it's more acceptable to maintain a cool, self-sufficient facade and be that I'm so chill person. You're obviously not, so just be yourself. Express your needs and understand that not everyone has relationship needs compatible to your own. So find someone who can do that and, you know, help you be happy. The 4th one is the abundance philosophy. So I love this. It's understanding that there are plenty of fish in the sea. So give several people a chance without setting on one person early on, because with an anxious attachment style, you just fixate on one person and your whole thing, the whole driving force is I don't want to be abandoned. So you're just like hanging onto them and gripping onto them. You need to date around. You're not letting anyone down or betraying anyone or ruining trust or any of those things by you know, letting a few good men buy you some nice dinners. Just date. So that's that. It also means that when you're dating many people, you don't have time to feel anxious or overly attached to one person and worrying about being left. So you start to see things quite differently. And then the 5th one is give secure people a chance, you know? So don't make impulsive decisions about whether or not they're right for you. You might be bored at first because there's less drama than when your attachment system is being activated. Calmness also doesn't mean a lack of attraction. Just hold out and you might appreciate calmness. You get to be with someone who communicates freely, is loving, affectionate, doesn't retreat during conflict, and they're there for you. And again, the majority of the population is secure. So you will find someone like that, you know? Yeah. Through learning this, you understand which situations can make you a nervous wreck. That's what anxiety is.
Yeah.
So just know that, just do those things.
Sound advice, good information. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see a lot of that in practice.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the dating advice for the avoidant attachment style?
Can do.
I think it's important.
Go ahead.
They matter too. I'll go through it a little more quickly this time.
I'm not going to interrupt. I'm just going to let the listeners soak in your information. And we can always have a discussion if anybody wants to talk about it directly anyway.
Yeah. So the first dating coaching thing applies to this. So I'm just going to go back for a second. But just to summarize, deactivating strategies are what avoidant partners do to keep their partners at arm's length. So things like not being ready to commit, but will still stay with someone for ages. Lame. No, I'm joking. No judgment. Focusing on small imperfections and, looking for perfection, pining after an ex, flirting with others. So, hurtfully introducing insecurity into the relationship just to create more distance. Not saying that you like someone or confirming how you feel about someone, but implying that you have feelings. Pulling away when things do go well. So not calling for several days after an intimate date. Again, creating more space. Having relationships with people with an impossible future, like a married person. Checking out mentally. Keeping secrets and leaving things foggy to maintain your feeling of independence but hiding it as privacy. I do that one. And avoiding physical closeness. So your dating coach advice is 1, identify the deactivating strategies and when you're doing them. Move from self-reliance to mutual support.
Okay.
Find a secure partner. And be aware of the tendency to misinterpret behaviors. So where anxious people are really acute with reading the room well, but then jumping to conclusions, avoidant partners are totally different. Like they're not as great as seeing and sensing emotional cues and understanding people. So they tend to misinterpret behaviors. Make a relationship gratitude list. Like try and bring yourself into appreciation for the person when you can be, nitpicky. Stop the phantom ex and forget about the one. The phantom ex, you guys broke up for a reason. You got to let it go. You're not going to find another person like them. That could be a good thing. And they weren't as great as you're thinking of in your head anyway. And forget about the one. The one will also include conflict and other things like that. That is normal for a relationship. It's never going to be picture perfect. And adopt distraction strategies. So a good thing for avoiding attached people is distracting themselves, so they're not worried about or thinking about how to create distance from their partners and stuff like that and all of those things. When they're distracted, when they're focused on something else, when there's like a huge life-altering event or something that's really weighing them down, it's easier for them to be less avoidantly attached, It's easier for them to kind of lean in. It takes, I guess, the pressure off or the threats that come with the idea of closeness. So, yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been a great episode.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot today. I hope you guys have as well.
Yeah.
Let us know what your attachment style is or the attachment style that you've come across the most.
Let us know what the learning journey is like with that. Because when I tell you it is just not easy.
Of course.
At first you feel so liberated and relieved because you're like, oh my God, I'm finally understanding myself. Then you're in real time and it's happening and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
At first.
Yeah.
I'm still at the at first bit, so
it's a journey.
We'll keep you posted.
100%.
Yeah.
But anything more you want to add before we bring it to a close?
No.
No. Cool. Well, thanks to all of our community, our listeners.
Yeah.
All the messages are always supported. I mean, your support is always appreciated. Sorry, but your messages are supported too.
Yeah, they are. We address them in the app, so
literally,
you know.
very much so. Continue to subscribe, follow, like, comment, all the above.
Yeah.
Get in touch, and I don't think we need a word of advice this week, unless you got one.
I mean, I've said so much.
Exactly my point. there's thousands.
I think people want to not hear my voice for a second.
Imagine if we'd done a word count on the episode. But
it's valuable information.
No, literally. No, it was definitely useful information. Very insightful.
Thank you.
And
well, I'm just a mouthpiece. I didn't write it, but
no, of course. But yeah, no, it's good either way.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Alphawaves podcast. And until next time,
we will miss you till then.